It is said, I think in the Lagnkavatar Sutra, that unskilled farmers throw away their rubbish and buy manure from other farmers, but those who are skilled go on collecting their own rubbish in spite of the bad smell and the unclean work, and when it is ready to be used, they spread it on their land, and out of this they grow their crops. That is the skilled way. In exactly the same way, the Buddha says, those who are unskilled will divide clean from unclean and will try to throw away samsara and search for nirvana. But those who are skilled bodhisattvas will not throw away desire and the passions and so on, but will first gather them together. That is to say, one should first recognize and acknowledge them and study them and bring them to realization. So the skilled bodhisattva will acknowledge and accept all these negative things. And this time he really knows that he has all these terrible things in him. And although it's very difficult and unhygienic, as it were, to work on, that is the only way to start. And then he'll scatter them on the field of Bodhi, the field of awakening. Having studied all these concepts and negative things, when the time is right, he does not keep them anymore, but scatters them and uses them as manure. So out of these unclean things comes the birth of the seed, which is realization. This is how one has to give birth. And the very idea that concepts are bad or such and such a thing is bad divides the whole thing, with the result that you're not left with anything at all to deal with. And in that case, you either have to be completely perfect or else battle through all these things and try and knock them all out. But when you have this hostile attitude and try to suppress things, then each time you knock one thing out, another springs up in its place. And when you attack that one, another one comes up from somewhere else. There is this continual trick of the ego, so that when you try to disentangle one part of the knot, you pull on the string and only make it tighter somewhere else. So you are continually trapped in it. Therefore, the thing is not to battle anymore, not to try and sort out the bad things and only achieve good, but respect them and acknowledge them. So theory and concepts are very good, like wonderful manure. Through thousands and thousands of lives, we have been collecting so much rubbish that now we have a wonderful wealth of this manure. It has everything in it, so it would be just the right thing to use, and it would be such a shame to throw it away. Because if you do throw it away, then all your previous life until today, maybe 20, 30, or 40 years, will have been wasted. And not only that, lives and lives and lives will have been wasted. So one would have a feeling of failure. All that struggle, all that collecting would have been wasted. And you would have to start all over again from the beginning. Therefore, there would be a great feeling of disappointment, and it would be more a defeat than anything having been gained. So one has to respect the continual pattern. One may have broken away from the origin, and all sorts of things may have happened. These may not be particularly good things. They are rather undesirable and negative. At this stage, there are good things and bad things, but this collection contains good things disguised as bad and bad things disguised as good. One must respect the flowing pattern of all one's past lives and the early part of one's present life right up to today. And there's a wonderful pattern in it. There's already a very strong current where many streams meet in a valley. And this river is very good and contains this powerful current running through it. So instead of trying to block it, one should join this current and use it. This doesn't mean one should go on collecting those things over and over again, Whoever does that would be lacking in awareness and wisdom. He would not have understood the idea of collecting manure. He would collect it together and acknowledge it, and by acknowledging it, he would have reached a certain point and would understand that this manure is ready to be used. So there's this sense of also acceptance and working in a patient and calm way with whatever is in one's psyche, in one's consciousness, not engaging in some heavy-duty battle with oneself again and again, which is exhausting and counterproductive. So skillfully working with all of the spectrum of one's desires, aspirations, anger, with all of the aggression, everything can be used as manure if one is skillful. Otherwise, there's a danger one becomes very, very passive and lifeless, which is not the point of the teachings at all. So again, remember the rather pitiful state of sentient beings, especially given the fact that we all have the Buddha nature. So how many people are activating or accomplishing their Buddha nature is virtually, it's tiny percentage of people are really working towards that, or even aware of that level of, what should we say, glory or magnificence that one has within, and are simply existing from day to day, trying to squeeze as much satisfaction and pleasure out of the circumstances that are provided to us. So I'm sure today we have all seen people and animals that are in far worse situation than we are. So we should stop complaining and rejoice in this opportunity we have as human beings with many, many advantages. Many, we could say, freedoms. Freedom from being abjectly poor, for example, freedom from being insane, freedom from being cut off from authentic teachings. We have freedom from being an animal or a hell being or hungry ghost. We're free of those very, very powerfully suffering states. And we have so much in our life. And we have the quality of awareness, so motivate that we utilize this session to awaken or further awaken our tremendous human potential, our ability to skillfully navigate our minds and our lives using the positive mental factors that we have at our disposal. positive factors such as faith, vigilance, patience, conscientiousness, courage, compassion, and so forth, culminating in wisdom. We have all of these potential qualities, and through listening again and again to the Dharma, and to words of teachers like Shantideva, it helps to awaken, stimulate our seeds of virtue. So we can practice the stabilizing breath awareness practice, which is, of course, more than just stabilizing. It's skillfully not identifying and reacting to whatever arises, but simply to notice, recognize, let go of the internal gossip, let it go and come back gently to the breath, sense of letting go with the out breath, the focus which is not strained but somewhat relaxed. So stillness in the body, relaxation in the mind, together with proper attentiveness, vigilance. Sit together quietly for a little while. Okay, so Shantideva is now moving into that section of the text where we're actually going to look at how to meditate once one has created the conditions for solitude. Yeah. We've seen the shortcomings of the ordinary deluded states of mind, the 8 worldly dharmas that we keep on talking about, especially the craving aspect. So now Shantideva is going to explain to us how to meditate in a way that will generate the compassionate attitude, the sublime mind of Bodhichitta, which is the main purpose of the book. As he says in verse 89, having in such ways as these thought about the excellences of solitude, I should completely pacify distorted conceptions and meditate on the awakening mind. So of course, most of the time, our mind is caught up in distorted conceptions, in constant tsunami, if you like, of scattered thoughts, past, present, future, especially past and future, without the kind of, you could say, without them being connected in a positive way with any sort of really wholesome motivation or wholesome intention. They're just random thoughts based on distractions, desires, annoyances, and so on and so forth. So that's how we usually use up our mental energy and end up exhausted, whatever, at the end of the day, or just kind of dull-minded. So here he says, first of all, I should make an effort to meditate upon the equality between self and others. I should protect all beings as I do myself, because we're all equal in wanting pleasure and not wanting pain. I was looking at alternative translations earlier today, and I find the translation by Vesna and Alan Wallace very good in their translation called A Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life. It's a Snowline publication. Their translation of verse 90 is as follows. One should first earnestly meditate on the equality of oneself and others in this way, that all equally experience suffering and happiness, and I must protect them as I do myself. Just as the body, which has many parts, owing to its division into arms and so forth, should be protected as a whole, so should this entire world, which is differentiated and yet has the nature of the same suffering and happiness. Okay, then, and we're going to look at a meditation soon, which can help us make this more real. Verse 92, although my suffering doesn't cause pain in other bodies, nevertheless, that suffering is mine and is difficult to bear because of my attachment to myself, because of my conceiving of myself as I. Thereby it becomes unbearable. So likewise, although I myself don't feel the suffering of another person, that suffering belongs to that person and is difficult for them to bear because of their attachment to themselves. Just like it is to me, because of my attachment to myself. So therefore, another person's pain is exactly the same mechanism, he's saying. Exactly the same process at work. And then a very powerful verse, 94. I'm reading the Wallace translation. I should eliminate the suffering of others because it is suffering, just like my own suffering. I should take care of others because they are sentient beings, just as I'm a sentient being. When happiness is equally dear to others and myself, what's so special about me that I strive after the happiness for myself alone? Very, very strong, isn't it? This is very, very powerful logic. When both myself and others are similar in that we wish to be happy, what's so special about me? Why do I strive for my happiness alone? When fear and suffering are equally abhorrent to others and myself, then what's so special about me that I protect myself and not others? Yeah? When both myself and others are similar and that we don't wish to suffer, what's so special about me? Why do I protect myself and not others? Then the argument against this logic that the opponent brings up is that why should I protect them if their suffering doesn't cause me any harm? Then Shantideva says, then why protect myself against future suffering if it causes me no harm now? It's a mistaken conception to think that I shall experience the suffering of my next life, for it is another person who dies and another that will be reborn. Just as I, care for myself and my future, even though it's not exactly the same person, so we should care for others, right? Who are not exactly the same person as me, but they have exactly the same mechanism at work, not wanting suffering, wanting to be happy. Now, the other translation there is that if I don't protect them because I'm not afflicted by their suffering, then why do I protect my body from the suffering of a future body, which is not my pain? Why do I protect my body from the suffering of a future body, which is not my pain? In other words, we do engage, when we understand the path, we do engage in actions now which are aimed at helping us not have suffering in the future, creating the karma that enables us to experience happiness in the future. So Shantideva is saying, why are we doing that? Why are we doing that now for something that's going to happen in the future, which is another person, actually, even though it's the same continuity. It's not the same body. It's not even the same person as such. It's a future life. But we are doing things now, at least those who are dharmically inclined, we are doing things now that we know will give us happiness in a future life. Why are we doing that? He's saying, relating it to this sense that, why should I help others? They're different from me. Their happiness doesn't affect me, and I don't feel their suffering. They don't feel my suffering. The assumption that it is the same me even then is false, because it's one person who has died, quite another who is born. The Tibetan apparently says, Wallace gives the actual Tibetan, the notion that I'll experience that is mistaken, for the one who has died is born elsewhere and is someone else. Surely whenever there's suffering, the sufferers must protect themselves from it, says the opponent. And then Shantideva gives this lovely argument, yet the suffering of the foot is not the suffering of the hand. And yet, he says the hand protects the foot, right? The hand goes out to protect the foot. Why does one protect the other? Although this may not be justified, it is done because of grasping at a self. Yet surely whatever is not justified for one, myself or others, should at all costs be rejected. If one argues that even though it is inappropriate, it happens because of grasping onto a self, then our response is, with all one's might, one should avoid that which is inappropriate, whether it belongs to oneself or to another. The continuum of consciousness is like a series, and the aggregation of constituents are like an army and such, and they are unreal. Since one who experiences suffering doesn't really exist, to whom will that suffering belong? All sufferings are without an owner, because they are not different. They should be warded off simply because they are suffering. So why is any restriction made in this case? As there's no owner of miseries, there are no distinctions among them all. They are to be dispelled simply because they are suffering. What's the use of restrictions there? Then if someone argues, why should everybody's suffering be counteracted? The response is, there's no argument. If it is to be averted, everyone's is to be averted. If not, remember, I am like other sentient beings. Are we getting this? Is it making any sense? I'll look in a minute at what Pema Chodron's commentary is. There being no inherent owner of suffering, there can be no distinction at all between that of myself and others. That's good, yeah. Thus I shall dispel it simply because it hurts. Why am I so certain that I shouldn't eliminate the suffering of others? And then the opponent is trying to bring up the argument of emptiness. Why should I turn away the misery of all, since there's neither suffering nor a sufferer truly existing? Shantideva said that isn't a proper ground for argument, because everyone wants to prevent their own sufferings. If I prevent my own suffering, surely I should prevent the suffering of all. If not, since I am just like other sentient beings, I shouldn't prevent my own suffering either. He's basically saying there is no difference between ourselves and others. So if suffering deserves to be counteracted in one case, it deserves to be counteracted in the other case as well, the case of others. Then the opponent argues that much suffering comes from compassion. So why should one force it to arise, Since this compassion will bring me much misery, why should I exert myself to develop it? The answer is, after seeing the suffering of the world, how can this suffering from compassion be considered great? Compared to the suffering of beings, the suffering one may experience through developing compassion is nothing, If by one person's suffering, the suffering of many would be destroyed, surely kind-hearted people would accept it for the sake of themselves and others. The other translation of verse 105 is, if the suffering of many disappears because of the suffering of one person, then a compassionate person should induce that suffering for his own sake and for the sake of others. Then it gives the story of Supushpachandra, who was, although he was aware of the harm the king would cause him, he accepted his own suffering in order to eradicate the suffering of many others. Let's see if that story is mentioned here. At the time of the decline of the doctrine of a particular Tathagat, there lived a monk called Supushpachandra. At one time, while dwelling in the Samantabhadra grove, together with 7,000 bodhisattvas, he perceived with his heightened awareness that if he were to go to the jeweled palace of King Viradatta and reveal the Dharma, many living creatures would attain higher states of existence and liberation. But if he were not to reveal it, they would not obtain those states. In addition, he knew that if he did go, the king would kill him. But nevertheless, he decided to go there. Upon his arrival, he spent 7 days without partaking of any food. During the night, he would circumambulate a stupa containing the relics of the Buddha, and during the daytime, he'd go to the palace and reveal the Dharma. After many million beings had been led to enlightenment through his teachings, the king then killed him. After a while, though, the king regretted what he'd done, subsequently enshrined his bones in a reliquary and worshipped them. Anyway, he didn't care that he was going to be killed. For the sake of others, he went there to be, to give them teachings. This is similar, isn't it, to the story of Atisha, Dipankar, who went to Tibet, although he knew it would reduce his lifespan. He went there to rejuvenate the teachings in the 11th century, although he had been advised to go by Tara. He said it would be very beneficial for beings, but that his lifespan would be affected. But he didn't mind that at all. Yeah, he was driven by compassion for beings. Let me now, because some of this is a bit dense, actually, and a little difficult, I want to switch to something we were looking at probably 2 years ago in our sessions, where I was using the book by Jeffrey Hopkins a lot called A Truthful Heart, where he is giving very basic but very, very important and powerful meditations on how to actually meditate on this equality of self and others, actually, and in a step-by-step way, so that it ceases to be theoretical and becomes something very real, which is what we want, right? We don't want things to just stay on the theoretical level, otherwise it just becomes like an academic study, and that's not the purpose here. And so I'm going to read extensively now from Jeffrey Hopkins. This book, very, very good book, Truthful Heart, Buddhist Practices for Connecting with Others. So in the chapter on on equality, he said he used to interpret, he was the interpreter, the main interpreter for the Dalai Lama for several years. And during a lecture, the Dalai Lama said, kindness is society. Kindness is society, which he thought was a strange thing to say. The translator thought it was strange. And at the time, he said, I wasn't smart enough to think that he was saying kindness is society. I thought he meant kindness is important to society. Kindness is vital to society. But he was saying that kindness is so important that we can't have society without it. Society is impossible without it. Thus, kindness is society. Society is kindness. It's impossible to have society without concern for other people. We've experimented for a century or more to see if we could have society without kindness, and the decision has finally been reached that it doesn't work. Capitalist and communist countries have given a try to see if we could have society without kindness, based on some other principles, such as oneself first or the state first. The state, as the latter people saw it, is not society, but some entity beyond society, whatever that could possibly be. Anyway, both approaches, unbridled capitalism and communism, have both been miserable failures. As long as the spirit of cooperation, spirit of wanting to take care of one another is not there, it's impossible to devise a workable system. The Dalai Lama, he says, is fond of saying, when he's beginning to address people on lecture tours, that he feels he knows each individual just like his own brother or sister, even though he's of a different religion, that most of the people who are listening. And he was brought up in a different part of the world, speaks a different language, wears different clothes. But his basic knowledge of himself provides knowledge of what everyone wants. Actually, we all know each other quite well. Sometimes, when the Dalai Lama says we all want happiness and don't want suffering, this seems to be a platitude, right? Not worth saying. But it is worth saying, contemplating, and making into a meditation. Because why? We don't remain in constant recognition of this fact, that just as I want happiness and don't want suffering, so you also want happiness and don't want suffering. Rather, we might think, oh yes, I want happiness and don't want suffering, and yes, these people want happiness and don't want suffering. Yes, of course. But all too often our next thought is, how can they serve me? How can I benefit from others? How can I make the situation such that others, are beneficial for me? So my usual habit draws me into thinking, how can you serve my quest for pleasure and my quest to get rid of pain? However, if I remember that I want happiness and don't want suffering, and you equally have the same aspiration, then I cannot possibly ask you just to serve me. Then, you see, if gaining happiness, getting rid of suffering are worthwhile for me, then they're worthwhile for everyone equally. What is it that makes our minds, this is something we need to think about, what is it about our minds that keeps us from this recognition of equality, between self and others? What makes it so easy to forget this fact? One factor is that we mainly encounter others. This is an argument he's using. We have to think about it. One thing he's saying is we usually encounter others through the medium of sight, visually, through our visual consciousness, our eyes. We mainly see other people, but we mainly feel ourselves and remain primarily concerned with our own feelings of warmth, cold, hunger, thirst, breathing, having this pleasure or that pain, right? We use radically different modes for self and other. This is a very interesting point. It's like other people are just, part of our field of visual awareness, especially if we're in a group, of many people, or we're in a hurry, or, whatever. We're just preoccupied with our own thoughts and so forth, our plans. Others are just bits of scenery, right? Visual scenery. If they're our child or someone we love very much or hate very much, then of course we have more of a sort of a connection with them. But otherwise, they're just, blobs of matter that we can see, And because we use the medium of sight to form our knowledge of others, we see persons in silly categories such as black, white, yellow, red, In Tibetan monastic education, one of the first things that young monastics are asked in the debating courtyard is a white horse white? Is a white horse white? The proper answer is no. The color of a white horse is white. A horse, like a human, is a sentient being, a person, and persons are not colors. We say so-and-so is black, so-and-so is white, but these descriptions are totally inaccurate. Colors are merely material. Persons are designated in dependence upon body and mind, but they are neither mind nor body, nor even a collection of the two. What we see as other people is merely color and shape. That for us, that's the main basis for defining other people. We define ourselves, however, through our feelings. It's crucial whether that feeling for us is pleasurable or painful, right? Everything we're doing is to extend the bearable, or, the pleasurable sensation, and to get rid of anything which is even slightly unpleasant, right? We're seeking pleasure, seeking to get rid of pain. So we're in close touch with our own quest to gain happiness and remove suffering. And with other people, since the main medium of awareness is different, we tend to be less aware. When I understood this, I realized why, when he went to Europe for the first time, although I was not the translator, but I read the news accounts, the Dalai Lama would arrive at a city and announce, everyone wants happiness, doesn't want suffering. In India, I had attended long lectures by him, 4 to 6 hours a day, 16 days running, on complicated philosophy and psychology. But when he came to Europe, what did he have to say? Everyone wants happiness, doesn't want suffering. He would come to the airport and announce that everyone wants happiness, doesn't want suffering. He'd have a news conference in the city and then he'd say everyone wants happiness, doesn't want suffering. City after city, I thought, what's wrong with him? It caused me to wonder if it was even relevant. But it is relevant. For understanding that others are so much like oneself creates a different perspective, a startlingly changed worldview. When this view is internalized, you are no longer confronting another person over a divide, but meeting someone with whom you have much in common. You begin to feel that you know the person. Indeed, you begin to feel you know everyone. So one of the marvelous advantages, he says, that he had from these trips abroad with the Dalai Lama is, as his chief English interpreter, is that he usually gave the first part of any talk in English. And then he could hear this message over and over again. And although I heard it thousands of times, everyone wants happiness, doesn't want suffering, rather than boring me, it would draw me again into thinking, yes, I need to internalize this attitude. I understood that on a personal, practical level, I had to bring this orientation into my moment-to-moment behavior. When you have a headache and you want to get rid of it, imagine it's the same for everyone. There isn't anyone who deliberately wants more headache. Is this making sense, what he's saying? He's saying very much bring it to our own level, gut level, the feeling level. Something very personal. It's very personal for oneself and it's very personal for others. And he goes on to say that our habit patterns are such, they're so caught up in delusion that sometimes when we see someone who's suffering, it generates happiness, He's getting what he deserves. So thus, in order to change one's attitude, that is, if you decide that compassion is worth cultivating, most of us first have to find out how to change it. It's obvious that if a friend suffers, we are unhappy, but if an enemy suffers, we feel joy, or we might feel joy, yeah? So towards those who are neutral, we don't care. If we read that someone we don't know is in the hospital or has died, we pass on to the next topic. But if we are to generate what is called great compassion in this tradition, equal compassion for every being, it's necessary to see all beings as close. So as close and dear as our own best friend. And to do this, it's first necessary to see that all beings are, in certain respects, are equal. Living in a big city, sometimes we feel we don't know our neighbors and so forth, but actually we know them well. They want pleasure, they don't want pain. This realization of similarity is not superficial, such as, for example, knowing that each of us has hairs in the nose, and thus we can always know something about others by reflecting on the fact that everybody has hairs in the nose. This may be a meaningful reflection, but it is not central, as is the fact that we all want happiness and don't want suffering. So let's just engage in this briefly, starting with people you know, starting with your friends. Think how, just as I want happiness and don't want suffering, so this person also wants happiness and doesn't want suffering. Think about this in relation to someone you know well, who is a good friend. Because there you may also have no specific instances of what has made this person happy, what has made them unhappy. So reflect on this. Then think of a neutral person. And this can be very powerful, Jeffrey Hopkins says, because we have so many neutral people who, of course, it's very easy to see just as visual objects, right? But think about anybody whom you is neutral, but somebody you recognize because you see them regularly, maybe a chowkidar, guard, someone, shopkeeper, or something like that, somebody or a neighbor, whom you're not close to in any way, you may not even know their name, but there's these people you recognize, and for each of them, we should arise this thought that these people are exactly like me in that they have feelings, they have sensations. Some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant. And just like me, they want more of the pleasant ones and they want to get rid of the unpleasant sensations, everything that is suffering, they want to get rid of. Just like me. This person who for me is just a nobody right now. Each one of them wants what I want in general. There may be different ways, of course, to get happiness, but we all want to avoid suffering, or whatever kind of suffering we have, and we all want to have more happiness or pleasure. Go through some of the people you recognize in the marketplace or wherever and think, everybody is like that. Hmm. So this means absolutely everybody. Everybody we can see with our eyes are beings who have feelings. And this, of course, extends to animals, insects, all of them have, at however primitive a level, a wish to have some kind of survival, happiness, if you like, and to avoid pain, suffering, to avoid extinction. Every single being, every single being, every single pigeon you see or dog wants to be happy, doesn't want suffering. And then, of course, one can move on to people we don't like so much. But however much we dislike them on this level that we are discussing, they're exactly the same as our best friend. When they have headaches, they don't want it. When they have pleasure, pleasant food, or drink, whatever, they like it, just like me and my best friend. They feel sorrow when people they love pass away, just like me. They feel some happiness when they get what they want, just like me, just like my friend. No different. Yeah. So in this book, Jeffrey Hopkins makes the point in one section that, in order to harm somebody, and he gives the example of how America at that time was trying to assassinate, get rid of Saddam Hussein, saying, you have to first create this sense that he's not really properly a human being, that he's some kind of devil, he's some kind of, less than human. He's a kind of a demon, a baddie, somehow outside of the orbit of ordinary people. And then you can attack that person, harm that person. Yeah, the language he uses is that when the government wants to bomb somebody, like Saddam Hussein, they first make him into a mad dog. They dehumanize him, separate him from the rest of us, then we feel it's okay to go ahead and bomb him. But if we were to recognize that all of us are beings who want to be happy, don't want to suffer, feel that. It's a feeling, not just a thought. We feel suffering, we feel happiness. So it is the same for everybody. So how do we feel when we are happy? How do we feel when we suffer? Of course, we may not be properly in touch with that, with ourselves. So we have to get in touch with that and then see that that is also what other people are experiencing. That's the way they work as well, basically. Okay, we can have some discussion. We won't look at any more verses now. It's 10 to 8. Yeah. So anybody want to mention anything? Anything? Anybody? Bob?
Anything? Good evening, Kabirji. It's Roy here.
Hi, Roy. Hi.
Kabirji, this is about yesterday's talk, something very small. And I'm sure that most people are quite clear about it. But I just wanted to know if it's okay to say that attachment, the word attachment is used in relation to what we have, while craving is used with reference to what we don't have. Is it okay to express it that way?
No. We can crave. No, I don't think that's. I mean, think of the definition of desirous attachment, of which craving is a more extreme form, is that it's a mistaken mind that exaggerates the pleasant or desirable, attractive aspects of an object or person and wishes to enjoy it, wishes to possess it, like that. So we can enjoy, we can desire, something that we already have rather than something that we don't have yet. Can't we? Doesn't have to be something that we don't have. We desire all the things that we possess, and we possess this body. We desire pleasant sensations for this body, which we already possess. It's not something we need to go out and possess. We already have this body. So I don't think your reasoning is correct.
Okay.
Craving is simply a strong form of attachment.
Okay.
There is contact, and then there is sensation, and then there is craving and grasping. Craving, and then the actual grasping is the
pain even, I think.
heightened form of it, when we reach out and try to grasp what we want.
It creates some kind of mental disturbance, craving, but attachment is really different.
They all create mental disturbance. Attachment creates mental disturbance. All of the klesh, all of the delusions create mental disturbance. That is one of the definitions, actually, of klesh, that which disturbs the peace of the mind. That is the most simple definition of the afflictive emotions, or the what we call delusions sometimes. Sanskrit klesh. That which disturbs the mind.
What is the definition of cravings in Hindi? Craving, what we can say? Craving in Hindi.
Craving क्या है हिंदी में, वजीर जी?
इसको हम तृष्णा कह सकते हैं.
Trishna, yeah, Trishna. Tanha, Trishna. And I think the more
Trishna
is something like upadana or something, is the grasping.
Trishna.
But Trishna, yeah, Tanha in Pali. Trishna. Yeah.
Trishna is in Sanskrit, and it's used in Hindi also.
Yeah, acha, Hindi mein bhi. Trishna.
When English can better explain, even translated more deeply, they work deeply, translated in English.
Sorry? Nahi samjha.
Translation in English are more explanatory. They did a lot of work in Pali and both in Sanskrit, and they defined their own language in English.
Yeah, we have to have proper explanations, then it can be clear. Yeah. But if we study Sanskrit or Pali properly, then I suppose it becomes extremely clear from studying those languages properly. Yeah.
It is difficult now for us. I studied Sanskrit during our 10th.
Yeah. Well, you just have to put effort, I suppose, as with all of
Pali.
You want to ask them? Yeah, I know. I'm just waiting to. हाँ जी, यहाँ एक सवाल है from Nitya. Just a second. Yeah, Nitya. Tanha. तन्हा का मतलब क्या है हिंदी में? तन्हा कोई शब्द है हिंदी में? ये कह रही हैं कि it means loneliness. Is that correct? Tanha.
Yeah, that's right. But that is more Urdu word. Tanha. जो अकेलापन है.
अकेलापन. अच्छा.
Tanha is Urdu, but Hindi we can say that अकेलापन.
Tanha is Urdu.
तन्हाई कहते हैं ना, तन्हाई.
तन्हाई. अच्छा.
So you couldn't really equate them. They're different.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah, totally different. Ajay, what else?
No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to request you if you could
That-
send those. Yeah, hello.
Huh?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to request if you could send those passage in which the white horse thing is written. Uh, the white horse passage. I want to
Acha.
share it with my brother.
With your brother.
Hmm.
Acha.
The whole thing, like if you can send pics of the whole page and passage,
Mm.
yeah, then it would be nice. I want to share it with my brother.
Okay, I'll send it to you later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I was, Kabirji, reflecting on verse 91.
Yeah.
I really find that the message in this is very deep. It's almost like saying that all the human beings are one. There is a universality in that. When
One in, yes, they are one in this sense, not in every sense.
yeah, no, in the sense that
They're
when
not
one
one
hand
mind.
is
They're not. Pataiye?
no, when one hand is suffering, the other hand goes to take care of that.
Yeah.
When one leg is paining, I think the hand goes there and holds it. So it's almost like saying that there is a interconnectedness.
Yeah.
There's the interbeingness. So can we really have in terms of feeling? So I think if that feeling comes, then automatically the compassion would flow, and then one would be able to help the others and see that other suffering is also like my suffering.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
और फिर वो आंवले के साथ वो देते हैं
Sorry? No, I wasn't implying that. I was just saying that we are equality of self and others is there, but we're not one in every sense.
Okay, but when you we are not all
Right, right.
all people,
Happiness and suffering. Yes. Yes.
that's a very gross level,
Right.
If we relate to that gross level business, but then let's say in an example of somebody over their mental state
Turns you over, matlab?
in the sense
Disturbs you.
manipulates
Ah.
takes advantage of one's kindness.
Ah. Right.
Then the diktat in some religions is, well, you know, then the term you are achieved or, you know, it's magical or, but it does. I mean, but I find, I'm not so sure.
Which one? This equality of self and others?
Yeah, equality of self and others in order to do that.
What other way is there to develop compassion?
How do you sustain that? Yes, even if I'm convinced that yes, if I feel pain, but because our minds are so different, cases, I cannot be assured that he will not a kindness that I extend to you at the cost that.
Oh.
So then, you know, you can guess yourself and not always extend that.
Yeah, we have to be careful. We mustn't be stupid. We've had these kind of discussions before. Of course, the argument could also be that if we are always super careful and don't trust anybody and are always on our guard, then our lives are going to be awful and very lonely and very full of anxiety and fear that you know, we're going to be manipulated by the people left, right, and center, and that is no way to live. You know, some people may live that way. So, you know, we should be on the lookout for people who are obviously just trying to take advantage or manipulate, but none of that prevents us from developing compassion for such a person in the sense of wishing them to be free from their suffering. Because the reasonings there are, you know, quite different. Meaning the reasoning there is that this person wants happiness and doesn't want suffering like me, but you know, of course, they're behaving in a way that is going to bring them more suffering. So then actually we feel more compassion for that person. Whereas at the same time, we may not be accepting their invitation to, you know, walk home with them because we feel they may have, you know, the wrong intentions, which they may well have, you see. So we have to be careful about people, of course, but we can still have compassion for them. This is the point. And the more we have compassion, I guess the argument goes, the more we have courage. So then we can even, you know, overcome certain circumstances of fear and so forth, and you know, create a different kind of effect on people. See, if we have strong compassion, then I guess some may argue we can then have a positive effect even on people who originally intended to take advantage or harm us. If our compassion is strong enough and our courage, then they cannot act in the way that they were originally intending. That may also be there. But the point is that from our side, we generate this powerful aspiration and mental factor of compassion, because it is just so, there are so many benefits. And we are, of course, we have to read up and reflect on the benefits. And if we are only going to be cautious, over cautious, then life becomes very grim. Yeah, we have to be skillful. Yeah, of course. Of course. Comes down to, yeah, so much comes down to still and awareness. And the ability to say no, the ability to be tough when necessary, the ability to, you know, get wrathful and scold people when they are obviously, you know, misbehaving. That's essential. Otherwise, people just keep on taking advantage and creating negative karma on the way. So none of that is useful for anybody. Yeah, okay, we need to stop now. It's almost 8:10. And the next session will be on Thursday. Then we have a session on Sunday. Just to, yeah, next month just to give you a small preview, excuse me. Next month we have Venerable Tenzin Lexok will be here, the Sera J monk who's taught here before. He'll be giving a talk on how to approach the Dharma. And this is the week 14th to the 20th. On the Friday of that week, 14th to the 20th, whenever the Friday falls in that week, he'll give a talk on approaching the Dharma. you know, how to approach it skillfully and properly. And then on the Sunday, he'll talk on working with anger and attachment, how to work with these emotions. So it will be good revision, good, yeah, that's for next month. Just check the dates in that week, which is the Friday, which is the Sunday. Friday is 4, 11, 18, 26. Yeah, so yeah, your answer is there. So that will be posted soon, just so you have a preview. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, many thanks to all of you, Kundrolla, for joining so early from Montana, and then all the rest of you from, I think, India. So thank you very much. And everyone here at Tushita, Nitya and Bob, and one lady who was here earlier, I can't remember her name, left. So thank you all very much. Please dedicate for the happiness and welfare of everybody. And yeah, there were some people, I think there were some people we needed to dedicate for, since people who had passed away. Excuse me. Yeah, we were asked to. Sorry, I'm just checking something. कौन है Bob? He passed away in your. Okay. Just a moment, folks. Thank you for your patience. I'm just trying to find. I was given a list of 4 or 5 people, I think. So I should have written it down there and then. Okay. Okay. No, this was some time back. This was some time back. The end of October. Okay. It included a rabbit and a pet dog. And an uncle. Anyway, whoever has passed away, human, animal, that we know, we can dedicate for them. We can dedicate for the Lieutenant Colonel who? Asare. Asare, who's passed away recently. And all of those we know who are disturbed in body and mind, suffering. Many people in Delhi now and throughout the world, of course, suffering from cold. People who have hardly any shelter or no shelter and not much to cover themselves with. You can hardly imagine their suffering. And in fact, any of you who wish to make a donation for blankets, there have been some people who've been asking for blankets. You can either make a donation at the center, or I can post the bank details online, and you can make a transfer, letting us know that it's for blankets, for example. Anyway, we dedicate for those who are in pain, because as we have been meditating, we don't like pain, neither does anybody else. Whether it's hunger, cold, whatever. May we never be separated from the authentic teachings and quickly develop the authentic great compassion that will enable us to be of tremendous benefit to ourselves and others. May all the kind spiritual masters have long and healthy lives. All their holy wishes be fulfilled. Okay. Thank you all very much indeed.